consistently getting hotter and hotter each year.
All across the West, people are desperate for a break from the excessive heat, with doctors urging everyone to watch out for the warning signs that your body is overwhelmed.
Pay attention to sometimes what might feel like little things, like you're feeling lightheaded, you're feeling weak. Those are some of the early signs.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Alex Savage. A rare October heat wave is causing a lot of problems for many people all across the West. In Southern California, several student athletes competing outdoors had to be rushed to hospitals after feeling sick. And crews in San Bernardino County who thought they were getting the upper hand on a massive wildfire are now suffering setbacks. Even those accustomed to hot weather are looking for ways to cool off in Phoenix as the heat lingers. We begin tonight's coverage on this prolonged heat wave with Fox 11's Matthew Seedorf.
A late season heat wave tormenting Southern California. What's it like out here today?
Hot. I'm like, there's no better way to explain it. It's hot.
Extreme heat warnings issued from the San Fernando Valley to the Inland Empire.
It's Riverside. Yeah, it's the summer that never ends.
Temperatures Wednesday in Riverside soaring close to 110 degrees.
It's very Vegas-like, just hot and dry.
Waiting for it to cool down, at least in the lower 70s something.
Skyfox Tuesday evening above a track meet at Ben Clark Training Center. 3 middle school students taken to area hospitals from heat sickness.
They were all individuals that crossed the line after they'd run their 2-mile race and kind of collapsed a little bit.
Eric Reynolds, a cross-country coach for Woodcrest Christian, organized the race.
We've run in hotter without any incident.
He says he warned other coaches about the heat.
I had let all 80 schools that were coming know, hey, these are the conditions. It's hot. Please make that decision that's best for you and your athletes.
The massive 43,000-acre line fire growing in the San Bernardino National Forest. Hot, dry weather fueling flare-ups, containment dropping from 83% to now 79%.
With the topography, the heat, and the fuel, the brush ready to burn, it was just a perfect combination to have this fire start making its runs again.
Workers outside looking for shade.
No, let's say it's dry heat, but it's hot.
Fox 11 photojournalist Gino Arias also sweating through the late season heat wave. What's this heat like for you?
It's hot. It's very hot. I'm sweating all over the place.
Reporting in Riverside, Matthew Seedorf, Fox 11 News.
And that was the situation in Southern California. Today's heat also set a new October 2nd record in Phoenix. Here is a live look at downtown Phoenix tonight and the conditions there, where temperatures today were well above 100 degrees this afternoon. Let's bring in KTVU meteorologist Mark Tamayo, who can break down just how long this heat is expected to stick around. Mark?
Hi there, Alex. Well, it's not going to release its grip anytime soon. It still wants to stick around for tomorrow with some maybe some improvement as we head toward Friday. But take a look at the highs from today. You can see 108 degrees in Phoenix, lots of triple digits in Southern California, 104 in Riverside, and also in the San Francisco Bay Area, temperatures in the 90s to up above 100 degrees. In fact, in the Bay Area, another round of records to report, as you can see, for San Rafael up in the North Bay, San Jose in the Santa Clara Valley, 106 degrees, even up in wine country, the Napa Valley, 103 degrees. Here's the distribution, once again, with the excessive heat warnings in place and the heat advisories in yellow still in place for tonight as we take a closer look at this map right now. In fact, covering a good portion of California into Arizona. The excessive heat warning continues in the Phoenix area tomorrow. Temperatures once again approaching 103, 106, possibly 107 degrees throughout the day tomorrow on your Thursday. This was Seattle today. We're not talking about heat up in the Pacific Northwest, just some clouds out there. Temperatures in the lower 60s. In San Francisco, once again, day 2 with temperatures in the 90s, 94 degrees this afternoon downtown San Francisco. And in Southern California, hard to pick out Los Angeles here through all that haze, so air quality not the greatest. Temperatures in the upper 80s. Current numbers out there right now, 102 in Phoenix, Las Vegas, 96 degrees. Up in Portland, Oregon, temperatures right now in the 60s. And as you can see, the big view on the satellite, no major storms to talk about right now, but up in the Pacific Northwest, That could be changing as we do move into Friday. But right now, we just have some patchy fog near portions of the Southern California coastline. And here is the plan for tomorrow. Clearing skies for Seattle, temperatures in the 60s. Another hot forecast for San Francisco, temperatures in the 80s, but a few miles inland. Once again, we're thinking some triple digits. Some sunshine out toward Denver. The heat warning continues for Phoenix, and Los Angeles will be in the 80s. In terms of that rainmaker, as you can see here, it's dry tomorrow. This is Thursday. But then look what happens in the Seattle area for Friday and also moving into Oregon. This system wants to move in. That could generate some rainfall, some steady rainfall. So that's a change up there, but no real rainfall moving into California or Arizona. Just the heat continues. Take a look at the Thursday forecast, where Olympia in the upper 60s, San Jose still hot, close to 100 degrees. Santa Clarita, Southern California, 105, and Scottsdale, Arizona, 107 degrees. Here is the forecast over the next 3 days, and no big changes with this theme here. As you can see, the cool conditions up in Seattle, temperatures in the 60s. Compare that to more triple-digit heat in the Phoenix area. So the heat really not releasing its grip, at least over the next 3 days. 108, 109, 109 degrees. So take it easy with that October heat wave. It still wants to stick around.
Alex. Yeah, good advice. We got to hang in there with this heat. Mark, thank you.
I'm here to say the United States, the nation, has your back. And our job is to help as many people as we can, as quickly as we can, and as thoroughly as we can.
President Biden with a message to the victims of Hurricane Helene today as first responders briefed him on response efforts. He traveled to Raleigh, North Carolina to speak with emergency officials who are coordinating recovery and relief work. Biden also took an aerial tour to see some of the destruction. The president says he does intend to survey the damage on the ground when a visit like that won't interfere with the work being done by emergency crews. Victims say they are thankful to see relief arriving.
I've never seen anything like this before in my life. We've tried to find our friends. We can't. We don't know
if they're dead or alive.
But I want to thank all of our
the help that
come into Shoal Creek, and they build us back up so we can get in and out. We had people coming in bringing water, everything we needed. So I'm just proud of all the neighbors around.
Such a difficult time for so many people in that part of the country. Helene is being blamed for as many as 182 deaths across 6 different states. Many people remain unaccounted for tonight, and millions are without power, water, and phone service. And as we've told you here on the show all this week, hundreds of first responders from agencies across the West are assisting in the response to this storm. That includes a number of urban search and rescue teams that have been deployed. All those resources being coordinated by FEMA in the disaster zone. Now, for more on what is unfolding there after Hurricane Helene, let's bring in Mark Nouveau, a former FEMA coordinator. Mark, we appreciate the time tonight, and we appreciate your expertise, especially when it comes to disasters like these. You have been there time after time. What are the most urgent priorities for those search and rescue teams on the ground in the disaster area tonight?
Yeah, what they're trying to do is get into those areas that are inaccessible, and we're still finding that there's a tremendous amount of areas unsearched. That's why they've got so many teams deployed, 21 of 28 teams across the country, 28 teams, 21 of them are deployed. Certainly some of them from California are out there helping out, thank God.
Yeah, and you know, we were talking, Mark, before we came on the air, and you were saying this potentially could be one of the largest search and rescue operations in U.S. history to a disaster like this. Why is it that so many search and rescue teams are needed to respond after this storm, and why are we expecting this is going to be such a prolonged response?
Well, you know, what it is that this hurricane, the width of it was 420 miles, which is unheard of in terms of hurricanes. They're typically 200 to 250. So we've had damage through 6 states up into mountainous areas. We know that there's areas that are hard to get into just naturally because of egress and ingress roads in and out. So what we're finding is that people are still trying to get into those areas to find out about loved ones, but communications is hampered also because of cell service. So it's taken a tremendous amount of teams to get on foot, fly into a certain spot, get, they land in a certain spot, and then they just got to get out and start gridding an area and start searching for people. It's a long, laborious process.
And so difficult. Mark, we heard just a moment ago from just a couple of the storm victims there. You could hear the heartache, the desperation in their voices when they talked about trying to find people that they know. As someone who's been on the ground in situations like this, how difficult is it to come face to face with people like that who are just desperate for answers and trying to find people they care about?
Yeah, they're long days. It's hard. The weather, communications challenge. You're up and down through debris. It's dangerous. But what keeps you motivated is hearing stories that we just heard a few moments ago, the emotion that's wrapped in it, people looking for their loved ones, their family members. This is a tight-knit community, and so it is, to be honest with you, an honor to be able to go in and help them out. It motivates you. It keeps you moving. It keeps you going.
And as we talked about, so much help coming from this part of the country, from here in the West. We have hundreds of firefighters from across the West Coast who have headed down to storm-damaged areas back east, and that includes a lot of really highly skilled teams from here in California. We know that the state of California coordinates directly with FEMA, obviously, and at last check, 172 first responders have been deployed from across California. They're part of urban search and rescue teams, and these are teams that are coming from across the state. LA, Oakland, Orange County, Riverside, Sacramento, and San Diego. And let me ask you this question, Mark, here, sort of from our perspective in the West. We're heading into the most dangerous part of our fire season. Do these deployments have any effect on the ability to respond to a major wildfire disaster in this part of the country?
No, because what they do is they're able to take a look at what they have in terms of staffing. And each one of these teams are 3 deep, 72 members times 3, 221 of them. And so they're able to move different teams in and out, number one. And remember, it's not just firefighters. It's civil engineers, it's medical personnel, it's canine handlers. There's a number of people on this team. And so when departments send their members, you'll notice most of these teams are made up of multiple fire departments. And the reason behind that is so that you don't tax one department and strip the area or that part of the state with the ability and resource if something else crops up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Really appreciate your insight tonight. Good to have you on. Former FEMA coordinator Mark Nouveau. Mark, thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
A federal investigation confirms that the deadly wildfire on Maui last year was sparked from an earlier brush fire that was believed to have been put out. That original fire was caused by a downed power line on August 8th of 2023. It reignited later that day, racing through bone-dry brush and destroying much of the historic town of Lahaina. At least 102 people were killed and more than 2,200 homes and other buildings were destroyed. The ATF and the Maui Fire Department presented the findings today, saying strong winds likely blew embers that rekindled the fire.
I want to make abundantly clear to Lahaina and to our Maui community that our firefighters went above and beyond their due diligence to be as confident as they could be that the fire was completely extinguished before they left the scene.
A $4 billion settlement of liability for the wildfire by a number of defendants, including the state and county and Hawaiian Electric, has been held up in court. Coming up tonight here on West Coast Wrap, a California doctor charged in the death of actor Matthew Perry admits guilt in court today, the time he's likely to face behind bars. Also, it's a mix of travel goals and couple goals. We'll introduce you to the Arizona couple achieving both at the same time.
It's really the next park that you come and visit, in my book, is my favorite because you never know what you're going to come across.
A San Diego doctor charged in connection with actor Matthew Perry's deadly overdose has pleaded guilty. Dr. Mark Chavez is the third person to admit guilt in the aftermath of the Friends star's death last year. He pleaded guilty to conspiracy to distribute ketamine and admitted he obtained ketamine from his former clinic and from a wholesale distributor where he gave a fake prescription. He gave that ketamine to another doctor, Dr. Salvador Plasencia, who sold it to Perry in the month before his death.
One of the more ominous parts of the federal case against them, they said there's an email from Dr. Plasencia to Dr. Chavez saying, let's see how much this moron, referring to Matthew Perry, and see how much this moron will pay for the ketamine.
Chavez could face up to 10 years in prison when he's sentenced coming up on April 2nd. He's also in the process of surrendering his medical license. A nationwide outage affected tens of thousands of Bank of America customers today. A message on the bank's app said some accounts and balances are temporarily unavailable. Many customers have been unable to check their online or mobile banking accounts or get cash from ATMs. Some customers also reported seeing an empty balance. A spokesperson told KTVU the issue has, quote, been largely resolved. There's no word on what caused the outage or whether the issue put customers' funds at risk. Thousands of Rite Aid workers are taking steps toward a possible strike if they can't reach a new contract. Union clerks, pharmacists, and technicians are planning to hold a strike authorization vote coming up on October 14th and 15th. They say they're underpaid, often unable to use their time off, and they're now worried that their hours are going to be cut back. Rite Aid did not immediately respond to our request for a comment. Well, there's concern in Arizona after authorities discovered that hundreds of thousands of people were allowed to vote, even though their proof of citizenship wasn't logged. The state's motor vehicle department treated about 218,000 people as if they had provided proof of U.S. citizenship when they had in fact not. This was because their licenses were issued before 1996. That was before the requirement was made law. That was in 2004. The state's Attorney General Chris Mays said the vast majority of these voters are indeed citizens and describes the mistake as a data coding oversight.
No evidence that there are voters in this group that are not citizens. And that's why the Supreme Court ruled what it did, which is it's okay for all of these voters to be given both state and federal ballots.
An Arizona law passed 2 years ago requires voters to provide proof of citizenship in order to cast ballots. The state Supreme Court ruled on September 20th that voters whose status has been recently called into question can vote in this year's election, as those lawsuits challenging the law are still pending. Vice President Kamala Harris surveyed damage from Hurricane Helene in Georgia earlier today. The Democratic presidential nominee spoke with families in Augusta who watched Helene dump as much as 4 months' worth of rain over just 2 days. She met with emergency managers who are organizing response efforts. She also praised first responders and victims for rallying together during this crisis.
We've seen that throughout the region where communities are coming together. Where people are helping perfect strangers, where they are providing food, water, shelter for their neighbors, and that neighbor may be somebody they've never met before.
And former President Trump toured hurricane damage in Georgia earlier this week on Monday. The Republican presidential nominee didn't make any public appearances today, but his running mate did make a campaign stop in Michigan. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance spoke to a crowd in Auburn Hills about the country's economy, and he made a case for former President Trump's plan to impose tariffs on imported goods.
To prevent those companies and those countries from undercutting the wages of American workers, you gotta be willing to impose tariffs. Fight back against the theft of the American middle class, penalize those companies that are shipping jobs overseas, and give a tax cut to American workers. That's how you build prosperity for this country, and that's what we're gonna fight for.
Former President Trump will return to the campaign trail tomorrow, planning a rally in Saginaw, Michigan. Coming up tonight, here on West Coast Wrap, hundreds of national parks in the country, and one Arizona couple has been to every single one. Tonight, the husband and wife share what got them started on this decades-long journey. Also, an Alaska tradition is underway tonight. Coming up, the contest asking you to guess which bear can pack on the most pounds. The Jewish high holidays started at sundown with the celebration of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. Many temples and synagogues across the West will be celebrating amid safety concerns. The increasing hostilities between Israel and its neighbors have many Jews on edge. Some synagogues have hired extra security. Along with the escalating situation between Iran and Israel, the one-year anniversary of the war with Hamas is also approaching. We have an update tonight on the Klamath River Restoration Project along the California-Oregon border. California Governor Gavin Newsom announced today that crews completed the final work to remove the dams from that river. Newsom says it was done ahead of schedule and on budget. This was after protests, testimonies, and lawsuits from local indigenous tribes who said the dam was devastating the natural environment. The senior water policy analyst for the Yurok tribe says since breaching the dams, fish have regained access to the habitat, water temperatures have decreased, and the water quality is improving. An Arizona couple with a passion for traveling just achieved a goal 20 years in the making. Fox 10's Dominique Newland spoke to the husband and wife about the adventures that put them in every national park in the U.S.
Daryl and Kathleen Tupkin, longtime Arizona residents, have reached a major milestone, visiting all 431 national park units across the U.S., a journey that started back in the 80s.
We did a westward camping trip with our dogs, and we went out to Nevada and California for a 7-week trip. And we started hitting national parks. We went up to the Redwoods.
They began traveling with their puppies in a tent trailer in 2004, and that's when the ball got rolling. Journeys that have taken them all over the U.S., to Puerto Rico, even the Virgin Islands.
Once we had gone to a few and we started going to a few more, we made the mistake of making a list. And I'll say never give my husband a list, because once you have a list, you have to get to everything on the list.
Taking the couple over 20 years to complete, you may think, why do they do this? They say it's a great way to explore the country and stumble upon places you may have never considered visiting.
I do have favorites, but honestly, it's really the next park that you come and visit. In my book is my favorite, because you never know what you're going to come across.
Over 100,000 miles of driving, flying, even helicopter and tiny seaplanes later. The husband and wife say it's been an adventure of a lifetime, one that started almost 37 years ago.
People think of Yellowstone and Yosemite and forests and woods, Acadia. But really, if you look at all the national park units, there's like a bunch that are national battlefields. There's wild and scenic rivers. There's national seashores.
And one they can check off the bucket list once and for all. For Fox 10 News, I'm Dominique Newland.
All right, finally tonight, the chunk off has begun. Voting opened up today for the annual Fat Bear Week contest at Alaska's Katmai National Park and Preserve. Viewers get to pick their favorite among a dozen furry friends who are fattening up for the winter. Adult male brown bears usually weigh between 600 and 900 pounds, with females being about 1/3 smaller. During this time, they can eat as many as 30 fish per day. And when winter hits, males can weigh well more than 1,000 pounds. Now, bear fans are instructed to vote based on who best exemplifies fatness and success in brown bears.
Basically, promote the fatness of the bears and to celebrate the bears getting ready for winter.
And last year's winner in the competition was Mama Bear 128 Grazer, who, according to the park, raised 2 litters of cubs and often preemptively confronts and attacks much larger bears, even large and dominant adult males. Don't mess with Mama Bear. Best of luck to all the bears in this year's competition. That does it for West Coast Wrap tonight. A reminder before we go here, you can stay up to date on all the stories we're covering across the West at westcoastwrap.com. Have a great night.